Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phoebe Potgieter-Gubule, and I will be facilitating this media briefing of the ANC Secretary General, Comrade Fikile. This is one of the others. The 1st and 2nd of August, we will have our second and final voter registration. In the last as well as new registrations, so the SG will talk about the campaign, but also other issues. So without further ado, I hand over to the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Fikile.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone, ladies and gentlemen of the media. It is a pleasure this morning to interact with you in a media briefing. And good morning to members of the media, those here and those who are linking with us. And good morning also to the people of South Africa. And let us begin where the whole nation has been smiling. At the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, our young people have done us proud. We congratulate Peter Kose on his double gold in the backstroke in record-breaking time. All of the track. The hopes of a nation, and you are bringing the medals home. And our hearts travel with Banyana Banyana, the defending champions of this continent, who opened their Women's Africa Cup of Nations campaign last night under Coach Desiree Ellis. Our champions fell narrowly to Tanzania by 2-1. Bambanani Mbani with our goal on the stroke of halftime in a match they largely dominated. And the result flattered our opponents. But the tournament is not won or lost on its first day. Banyana meet Cote d'Ivoire on the 31st of July and Burkina Faso on the 4th of August. As the ANC, we are behind Banyana Banyana, and we urge all our fellow compatriots to support our girls and give them much needed support and publicity as we follow their journey in this AFCON, Women's AFCON. To our champions and to Coach Ellis, we say, hold your heads high. Countries behind you, and go and defend your crown. In recent weeks, the world and our own people paused to honor Nelson Mandela on the International Day that bears his name. To honor Madiba is to measure ourselves against what he stood for, a South Africa that belongs to all who live in it. And as we speak today of an economy that must be shared, reconciliation anchored in the rule of law, and so we speak of the courts and the commissions, the humble service of the people, and so we speak of water and local government, and an African before all else, and so we speak of our neighbors and of the Ubuntu that binds us. This is the standard. We come before you on behalf of the national, which has meant that the not our own committee wants and the ANC wants the country and the world to see this afternoon is the ANC that is listening, that is changing, and that is doing the hard, careful work of fixing what is broken. In the open, within the law, and with the people. Let us turn to the matters before the nation and then take your question. On the cost of living, the ANC made the cost of living the first item on the nation's agenda, because it is the first item at every family's table. Is family with a bond, and let us be plain about where the pressure comes from. Much of it begins far from our shores, around Iran and the Gulf, and the wars in the wider region unsettle two things our economy cannot do without: the world's oil and the world's fertilizer. When the oil price climbs, the price of fuel climbs with it. And fuel and fertilizer together side the thing, and everything we move. So of every in the price of and transport, we are part of the family of nations. We are not an island as South Africa. Affect at home. Working committee adds the movement's voice to the call for calm in the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and we stand ready to assist any genuine effort towards peace and ceasefire, should it be needed and welcomed. But the state can do more to cushion our people directly. That's the position of the ANC. We renew our call to the Minister of Finance, with the ministers responsible for our minerals and energy, to relieve the consumer on the fuel levy, the one lever that reaches straight into the price of nearly everything. And we say plainly, the coming medium-term budget must meet the people halfway on the cost of living. The Office of the Secretary General at Luthuli House shall also examine whether it is permissible for the movement to appear consistently before NERSA, the independent regulator, so that the ordinary consumer is heard whenever an electricity price increase is proposed. Our scientists caution that El Niño may again bring drought, and the ANC expects government to place its plans for food, water and disaster preparedness before the nation ahead of time. On fixing local government, this is the year of decisive action to fix local government, and the ANC is doing the patient work it requires, intervening under the Constitution where councils have faltered, and driving turnaround on water, electricity refuse, and roads through our local government interventions program. On the withholding of grants to struggling municipalities, we hold two truths together. Public money must never be stolen or wasted, and that discipline must be exercised within the constitutional order through parliament, which divides the nation's revenue, firmness and the constitution together. And there are real signs that the turn is coming. The latest audit outcomes of the Auditor General show municipalities beginning to recover. The number of clean audits has risen. And in KwaZulu-Natal alone, Richmond, Msini, and Umvoti earned clean audits for the first time in years, while some 18 municipalities across KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and the Northwest have climbed out of the West audit categories. eThekwini is in steady financial recovery, collecting 93 cents in every rand it bills, with billing accuracy near total. These are not yet victories to be celebrated, but they are the proof that discipline and competent and capable hands can bring municipality back to health. We must speak of water, for there is no dignity without it. Where communities have been left without water, we have seen deep anguish, and in the worst moments we have seen lives lost. And the ANC grieves everyone, for no debt dispute is worth a human life. The response is serious. Urgent rescue teams and new national water plan to secure a reliable supply. And where the state has focused itself, our country has seen what is possible. For more than a year now, our people have lived without load shedding. We do not boast, we say it to give the nation confidence that the same seriousness is now turned on water and on your municipality. On economic transformation, the economy, we say, shall be shared. This is also the year to transform the economy, and that task is under deliberate assault. The ANC notes with alarm the orchestrated effort to stain our policies of transformation and redress. Let the facts speak. South Africa remains the most unequal country in the world, for which reliable measurements exist. The richest 10th hold roughly 86% of all wealth, and a few thousand at summit hold more than the poorest 32 million combined. An economy owned by so few is not only unjust, it is unstable. The soil of our and unemployment. So we see the attacks on black for what they are, an assault on the patient building of a shared economy. Let us be clear. Broad-based black economic empowerment will survive the attacks and the slander. It is not a cost, it is an investment in stability and social peace. And transformation must be felt as work, not ownership alone. We are beneficiating our minerals at home, protecting workers as artificial intelligence enters the workplace, and making the income floor permanent through a basic income support to succeed the social relief grant. No newspaper column or badly constructed research paper will shame our people out of a lawful demand. From Cape Town to Messina, this economy is yours too. On peace, safety and stability, every life is precious. And the Working Committee speaks plainly of the political killings that scarred the run-up to this election. On the voter registration weekend of the 20th of June, 4 politically linked South Africans were murdered across 3 provinces, cut down for their part in our democracy. Comrade Stelo Mleve, an ANC ward councillor in Nelson Mandela Bay, gunned down at a party meeting. Ms. Sinovuyo Gyogwe, a Democratic Alliance by-election candidate, shot in Danun as she returned home from a registration station. Mr. Leon Ngigwe, a Build One South Africa candidate, ambushed in Guguletu, and Mr. Mozwakile Zungu and Mr. Siabonga Mabaso of the MK Party killed in Beggarsdal. The movement condemns every one of these matters, whatever the colors the victim wore, for the killing of a candidate or a councillor is an attack on the vote itself. We extend our condolences to their families and to their movements. We insist on decisive police action, and we call on the Political Killings Task Team to pursue those responsible without fear or favor, and to bring them before the courts. And where the police acted, we hail their work. The alleged master behind the murder of Ms. Gyogwe has been arrested, and a suspect is in custody for the killing of Comrade Mleve. That is the diligence the nation demands of its police, and it must be sustained until every one of these matters is answered in court of law. On the safety of our people, there is cautious hope. The latest statistics show a second quarter of broad decline. Murder down more than 9%. House robbery down a fifth. We do not celebrate, and we will not, because 58 murders a day remains a wound, and because nearly half of all reported rapes still happen in the home. Gender-based violence and femicide remain the sternest test of our moral standing, and no decline is worth a celebration while a single woman or a child is unsafe behind her own door. We commend the police for this stand, and we demand they sustain it. But the police will not act alone. They must work with communities. In our community policing forums, in our community safety forums, different municipalities, let's get together and work with the police to sustain and back any violent crime in our communities. On cleaning the state, South Africans have said they will not be governed by the corrupt and the state capturers, those who feed at the trough of public money while our people go without water. That is why the ANC established the Madanga Commission as a direct response against attacks, and many others who said that is again another waste of money, another talk by Ramaphosa. And we did assure everybody that this commission, including Zondo, was not useless. We see now people have been arrested, even from the Zondo Commission implications. SIU is doing its work. All structures of the state are doing their work. Madanga Commission and other instruments now at work. And why we insist they run their course in the open. The Madanga Commission is cleaning criminality out of our police and reports by November. Parliament's adoption from Lieutenant General Mkwana's disclosure carries the sacred victims. On the Mkwana's matter as a movement of policy and oversight, not of operations. We believe 3 areas should be the focus: an end to phone calling, quote unquote, phone call policy, with ministers setting policy and the commissioner, national commissioner, commanding operations, and no more. The return of IPID to its lawful mandate, for it is not an intelligence agency, and its drift into covert-style work is a national security concern that warrants a proper audit, and the demilitarization of the police is the people, with protection for those who testified at risk to their lives. And we insist the work be done in the open. Is that even when the wrong ANC, that person is named and isolated. And this is the necessary pain of building a state worthy of our people. Clothed in that commission, some of them throwing the names of our movement in vain. Those perpetrators must be brought to book. This is the time, Kinab. And it is in our support in what the president has done significantly to push back corruption and took a decisive action with clear terms of reference that enabled the commission to do its work and at the same time bring the perpetrators to book. And I can see in South Africa, everybody's happy. This is what our people want. Our people want those who undermine the rule of law to be brought to book. And they want a functioning state, not a loose state, weak, and criminality and corruption runs amok. On the constitutional matter concerning the president, the ANC asks a fair process will give the country a result it can stand behind. Let us set out plainly what the court actually said, so the matter can be read calmly, because there's a lot of talk, including the interpretation from time to time of what the courts decide, of what the Constitutional Court have decided on this matter. First, the court granted an interim order that pauses the public hearings of the parliamentary committee. It is a pause, not a cancellation. Secondly, it did so to allow a proper court to hear the review the president is entitled in law to bring set down for the 2nd to the 4th of September. Third, the court did not decide who is right or wrong on the substance. It protected the process so that it is done correctly. Fourthly, the binding judgment of the Constitutional Court of the 8th of May still stands. And the parliamentary process remains alive. It will continue once the court has spoken. We know now the president is advancing a credible case, and it must be given its space and not be undermined or rushed over. The ANC has held its own participation as a threat of the court in abeyance on matters of process only and firmly outside the election contest, while some parties, we note with regret, abuse this moment for headlines. The National Working Committee also defends the Speaker of the National Assembly against the motion of no confidence. Faced with litigation between two parties she may later preside over, the correct and constitutional thing was precisely what she did, not to take a side. To punish a presiding officer for refusing to be partisan is to stand the principle on its head. And Parliament must chew gum and walk at the same time. It cannot be consumed by one matter while our people are jobless and the cost of living bites. No one will stop September from arriving very shortly. The question before us as the ANC has always been about sequencing of what comes first and whether the other process can run over the other. the distortion, the opportunism that we've seen has not worked. Because the distortion was one that the Concord have decided that the president must be impeached. And what was not explained is that there is no such a decision of Concord. Even the voodoo lawyers who analyze in the media rooms every day have not assisted the process of clarifying legal matters before the nation. They've instead taken a political dive into the cocoons of political parties and sustained their agenda. And that is not information South Africa needs. South Africa needs information so that people can make up their minds, because they are not lawyers. But they must make up their minds being informed correctly about the interpretation of the court judgment. Political parties will remain political parties. They posture worse during the election period. They like to score own goals, and we as the ANC have been there before. We scored our own goals. We are enough now. And we follow the law. In the past, we did not. And we were punished. And we were brought to light. So, we are saying to South Africans, when we said to you that we have veered away and we are on our comeback, we meant this. So, we will not defend anything that is unlawful, and that in itself is not helpful in terms of the processes of law that must be followed. On the migration question, the 30th aftermath and the Continental Compact. At the end of June, forces under an anti-immigrant banner set out to shut down parts of our country and to sow mayhem. And I was here when I told you that they are going to differ because they are hibernating political interest, but pursuing an agenda of immigration. That's what I said in the last press conference before the 30th. Where are we today? Are they not at each other's throat? Because the political interest on this agenda, which we address as genuine, are varied among the forces of anti-immigration. And we have chosen a process of the state at the helm in terms of dealing with this matter. We have never defended illegal immigration as just for our country, but we have condemned vigilantism, which we do. We have condemned anarchy, and we have said, subject yourself to the state, and the state must do its work so that citizens don't take the law into their own hands. So, let us report plainly. They were contained, and the shutdown they promised did not break the back of the Republic. But there was a cost to the good name South Africa has built since 1912. And we're going to pay heavily for that as a country. The organizers and funders must understand they are eroding our standing as a safe home for the tourist and the investor, and isolating us from our own continent. And when South Africa stands alone, it will not succeed. We see these patterns for what they are: the agent provocateur, the cheap mob politics of the ballot chaser, and the poison of ethno-nationalism that will break this country apart. The enforcement of our laws is the work of the state and of no one else. The authorities have effected some 72,000 deportations of persons here unlawfully. Diligent work, yet still under a tenth of the estimated total. A presence that does depress the wages of our workers and the tax base of our services. And we direct a firm word to the employer, the one who knowingly hires the undocumented to work them harder and pay them less. It's not only breaking the law. That employer is depressing wages, starving the fiscus, and sabotaging the economy and the peace of our communities. The exploiter of cheap and unlawful labor is as much the author of our tensions as any smuggler at the border. To our own people we say, be wary of the radicalization trap. Do not be drawn into public disorder and vigilantism, which earn you a police cell while the true causes of your hardship go untouched. Take your grievance to the ballot, not the streets. For the pressure at our borders is at root a continental crisis of economies under strain, of conflict, and of climate shock. A continental problem asks for a continental answer. It is for this reason that the ANC today places before the nation the Continental Compact on migration in Africa. It faces our people's concerns honestly and answers them in law. It acts on the causes of migration. At their source, it manages movement while breaking the trafficking syndicates, and it protects the wages of South African workers. We offer it not as a decree, but for the people to study, to challenge, and to improve. South Africa and the world, our freedom was always bound up with freedom of others. We must speak of the grave setback to the International Criminal Court and its prosecutor, Mr. Karim Khan. It is our firm belief that his isolation flows from the warrants he pursued against the powerful, including for the crimes in Gaza, and that those who hold the mighty to account are made to pay a price. We must not forget the people of Palestine, who enjoy fresh incursions into the West Bank. And we call on the world and the Secretary General of the United Nations not to let their plight slip from view. And we call upon the State of Israel to vacate the territories it occupies in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza, and to fulfill its obligations under international law and the UN Charter, for there is no peace to be built on occupation. We condemn too the violation of the sovereignty of Venezuela, and this concerns Venezuela, not Bolivia, for the seizure of a sitting head of state through a breach of another nation's territory is a grave breach of the UN Charter. And the reported loss of life must be independently investigated. We do not choose any nation's government, but we stand without equivocation for the principle that no country's borders may be seized by force. On a warmer note, we congratulate the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the Right Honourable Andy Burnham, and we welcome with gratitude the extension of AGOA to South Africa under President Trump's administration, and thank Ambassador Bozell for his constructive part in it. On the new forced labour designation and its duty on our exports, we say plainly it is unfortunate and not founded on the facts. Our laws prohibit forced labour, and we have ratified the IMO conventions. And we are ready to meet the ambassador at our level, hear him out over a warm cup of rooibos, and repair a friendship that runs from Seme at Colombia to Lutuli on American shores. Towards the local government elections, the National Working Committee has set the movement's program for the 90 days that remain on the two fronts that carry us to the vote: the fixing of local government and the campaign itself. And the National Working Committee, reporting to the National Executive Committee, carrying out its mandate, will take up that program when it convenes at its meeting in the next days ahead. The ANC is on the ground in every ward, at the doorstep, the way the movement has always campaigned. We urge every eligible South African and our young people above all to use the coming registration weekend. Your voice decides who fixes your street. On the leadership of our cities and towns, the national officials of the ANC have for the first time taken direct and personal charge of choosing our mayoral candidates. A centralized process built to answer the country's demand for mayors who will serve and not steal. It works in stages. The branches and the sectors nominated, the nominees were screened, shortlisted and put through an enhanced independent vetting process. And the national officials themselves, sitting in panels with the National Executive Committee, have now interviewed more than 200 candidates against a common standard of competence, ethics, and fitness for purpose. What remains is the most careful stage of all. The national officials, having done the interviews, will now go municipality by municipality through the painstaking task of deciding who is truly fit for the purpose in each council. Those candidates will be announced in the coming weeks. Alongside them, our manifesto, the movement's contract with the people for the next 5 years of local government, is nearing finalization. As inputs of the sectors of communities continue to come in, and it too will be revealed to the nation on the 15th of August, here in Gauteng, at River Park in Diepsloot. That's where the ANC will launch its manifesto. And before that manifesto, the candidate selection process of the ANC will have been finalized. The selection of mayoral candidates will have been finalized. And some of these mayors we are going to announce will resume duties with immediate effect in the different councils throughout the country up until and beyond November, depending on the outcome of the general elections. And where an election is not run on lawful and reliable voters' roll, the ANC will defend the vote of the people through the courts. We are before the electoral courts in our challenge to the Independent Electoral Commission over the by-election in Ward 28 of Mfuleni in the City Bay district, which was decided by a mere 8 votes on a roll that could not lawfully be placed in that ward. Where have you seen 100 people from one house registered to vote? This is not sour grapes. It is the matter of the integrity of the roll, on which the whole nation votes on the 4th of November, and will pursue it in exactly that spirit. And in Cape Town, 2 recent findings. The Constitutional Court on Apartheid Spatial Planning and the Public Protector on Langa and Khayelitsha have exposed a governance grown distant from the black and colored communities who are the majority of that city. We're coming back to the people's side, ward by ward, with humility and a plan to govern for everyone. In closing, let us close with a plain statement of who we are and where we are going. The work is unfinished, and we say so plainly. We do not pretend otherwise, and we do not run from it. But a movement that can lift the darkness of load shedding, turn the tide on crime, and clean its own house in full view of the nation is the movement that can be trusted with the next 5 years of local government. That is the quiet confidence of a movement that is at work. To the people of South Africa, we say simply, we've heard you. We are with you, and we ask you to walk this road with us to this coming registration weekend, to the doorstep debate, and to the ballot on the 4th of November. We thank you, and we will now take your questions.
Much, Comrade SG. We're going to open the floor for questions. Okay, let's start at the back. 1, 2, gentleman with the glasses. 3 with the green shirt. 4, 5 in front. Okay, and then we'll take a next round. Just remember your numbers. Kindly introduce yourself and post the question.
Mr. Mbalula, on local government and your manifesto and mayors that you're going to, mayoral candidates rather, you're going to announce next month on the 15th, does that include metros?
Yeah, you don't put it close.
When you're making the announcement, you said that some of these mayors are going to assume their duties immediately. Does this include metros? And can you just please take us through the reasoning behind that? I mean, one wonders, where's the wisdom in bringing a new mayor and then he's got what? 3 months or 4 months? What sort of difference can that person really make? And then, Dirk called this morning, told us that Minister Mbalula met with took a message rather to the Nigerian president from President Cyril Ramaphosa, and this is to quell tensions between ourselves and Nigeria. Do you think that is enough? I mean, I'm asking this at the back of Vincent Magwenya, the spokesperson of the president, last week, saying that there seems to be a concerted effort by some African nations to position South Africa as we're isolated, etc. So do you think this is going to help, or do you think there's a need for a party-to-party or progressive sort of conversation between yourselves and colleagues in Nigeria? Thank you so much.
Okay, yes, number 2.
Good afternoon, SG. Brayton here from Netwerk 24. SG, my first question is, it's been widely reported. Am I still? Yeah. It's been widely reported that the good Reverend Shikan is going to be the ANC's mayoral candidate in Johannesburg. Is there any political risk for him standing as a candidate, and did the ANC feel any pressure fielding a strong candidate because the DA fielded Helen Zille here in Johannesburg? That's my first question. And then in the ANC's analysis, is there a coalition pending in the city of Cape Town? We see the PA also emerging there with lots of numbers. And why do you think it's possible for a coalition to emerge, if so, in the city of Cape Town? And then my last question is there a strategy that the ANC is implementing to really close this gap between the ANC's messaging and what the reality is, how the party is perceived on the ground? Yeah, that's my question for now. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, SG Mephibi, and we note the presence of this brother in front of me. We can see the rich nation of the SGO. Anyway, I'm just passing by now. SG, my questions are one, don't worry, Mr. Bowman. I'm joking. SG, one of my questions.
To the question.
Yes, you speak about the water action plan. SG, what is your comment on those who say that this is another ruse by the ANC-led government to privatize water provision, and also the generic feeling or approach in this day and age that whatever public service that is failing, if you bring a private partner, it's going to work. What is your comment on that, SG? And then on issues relating to the candidate selection process, SG, I think a lot of controversy has emerged from the community meeting versus the final BGM. In fact, on my way coming here, I was sent a couple of complaints from some region somewhere in KwaZulu-Natal around this issue, wherein which one takes precedence, the community meeting candidate or the final BGM candidate? Because sometimes there is a collision between the two, and it looks like the final BGM always favors the ANC candidate. Sometimes what emerges from the community meeting is not a traditional ANC person. And then on the standoff between the employer of my previous two colleagues to ask questions and AfriForum, the name of the ANC has come out about them receiving donations from Media24 of 8 million. I think the donation itself is a public information, but now there's varying figures around this issue. How much did Media24 donate to the ANC? And then, Mr. SG, on Madlanga Commission, one of your deployees, leaders of the ANC, Mr. Suleiman Karim, there's a lot that has been said about him. Has he appeared before the Internal Commission, be it at a provincial level or at national level? And if he has, what is the outcome of that Internal Commission appearance? And then lastly, SG, what is your comment on the chaos, or must I say happenings, at the PIC, wherein the chairperson who is an ANC leader has resigned, and then there's a whole lot of talk that is going on. I mean, I'm sure you're an interested party in issues that are happening at the PIC. Thank you very much.
Okay, the one before last question. Go ahead.
Something myself from SABC. I want to ask a myriad of questions. Mr. Mbalula, on the issues pertaining to the PIC, particularly it's the biggest asset management company within the African continent, and it's consecutively now that we've seen deputy ministers and chairperson of the board resigning. We saw it with Mundle Kungubele, we are seeing it now with David Masondo. Is there constant friction between your deployees in the form of the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Minister on this asset management company? And what is the cause of this particular friction? Has David Masondo, Dr. David Masondo, and Inoko Kodongwana come and explain themselves on what is currently transpiring within this entity, which is a shining star within the African continent, yet besieged with governance problems? On the same train of governance, the Minister of Finance has withheld municipal grants. 7.9 billion or 7.2 billion by the end of this month will be given to various municipalities. What has been the ANC's involvement in the discussions with the Minister of Finance in withholding these particular grants, noting that all of these municipalities across the country are grappling with service delivery challenges, particularly a city like Johannesburg, where refuse is not collected. My refuse may have not even been collected today, since it's Tuesday, it's meant to be collected. What is your input on that particular matter of taking these finances away from municipalities in the interim? Then lastly, there was some sort of political provocation over the weekend. Your colleagues in Limpopo at the Makwarela Stadium held the provincial rally. Just a stone's throw away, your erstwhile friends, the economic freedom fighters, were holding their own rally, and a chopper happened to hover around the EFF rally, bearing ANC emblems and colors, which you've also gone and posted on your social media account. Are you not breaking electoral laws of the country and provoking another political party in launching their manifesto, which may lead to some sort of bloodshed, as we've seen in other provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, particularly between yourselves and the Inkatha Freedom Party? Have you not learned any lessons from the yesteryear struggles of yourselves and the Congress of the People, particularly in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape? Thank you very much.
Okay, the last question, then we'll get the SG to respond, and then take the next round.
Good afternoon, Shannon Merricks from Kasi, Eastleigh, Africa, a member in good standing of the Press Council of South Africa. On commissions, Mr. Fikile, you say the Madlanga Commission has been successful. I'm sitting here asking myself, how do you come to that conclusion? Because the Madlanga Commission reports, none of the reports are made public to anyone, not even us, not even you. So we can't compare the rest to the Madlanga Commission or its reports? How do you respond to that? On local issues, you're going for 90 days, you're going to launch your manifesto for local elections and so on, you're going to talk about smart cities and all that, but trains are not working. Your majority of black people traveling by trains are suffering. The sewage, the toilets don't flush at train stations. And by the way, I'm using the train for 3 months, so I'm speaking on facts. Your trains are, the train stations are dirty. How are you going to tell those millions of people traveling by train when the stations don't operate, the trains are late and so on? On issues in Africa, now that much and much is done, but Abahambe is part of the government, so the Nigerian government are not wrong with their attitude towards the ANC-led government. However, where do you stand as the ANC on Pan-Africanism? Are you going to talk about Pan-Africanism, or as you as the ANC abandoned Pan-Africanism? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Comrade Ishi, there's quite a bit of questions. We will take another round after responses from this set of questions.
Thank you very much for the questions. Let's start with Use 24. Mayors will resume duties. What does that mean? What it means is that it will vary from one city to metro and all of that. If a person chosen to become a mayor permits that is inside the system, that person will then continue till the end. Because we're almost reaching the end in terms of local government elections. So that is what we mean. That where it is possible that people then continue because they are given a clean bill of health, that they can still continue, they will continue. So that is what it means. So that there is no question about why does this person continues, and whereas there were interviews and all of that, what happens to the new mayor? In certain instances, we will choose to go and campaign, as we will do, and then the mayor will resume the duties of becoming the mayor after the election. So we're just putting that across so that there is clarity when we deal with this matter. The South African government, led by the President of the Republic, have been in the forefront in sending envoys to different countries to brief them about the situation at home. Because what was projected, and which is what is out there, and it doesn't start now, were even condemned by the United Nations when it was projected that people have been beaten up in South Africa and that they have been chased away and all of that, and some people died. Remember, at some point you guys reported that a Mozambican national died somewhere in the Eastern Cape or Western Cape, somewhere there. And then that in South Africa we are killing foreigners of African descent, and then there's war. And these people who are marching, when they started, that's how they caught the attention. Mobilizing and beating up people. It changed over time when generally churches and broader civil society condemned this vigilantism. And the language and the approach these marchers were taking then began to change. Now, there's no one in a state like ours, where the rule of law runs supreme, can actually take the law into their own hands and do what was projected to be coming. So the 30th of June was projected as a cleansing of Africans in our country by all means necessary, including violence, including killing. We started seeing people marching with knobkiris and all of that. And then we as the ANC have been very consistent. We say that this thing that is being done by these people, it must not be celebrated, it must be condemned and discouraged, and the law must intervene. Because we knew that from the days of apartheid, this thing of ethnic wars and tribal wars, what they did in the mines, when our people were made to speak Fanagano, Sutus fighting with the Cossacks, and all of that, and when people came to Johannesburg to work in the mines, and all of that, because those among them were captured for cheap labor. And majority of our people were basically isolated from these mines. And foreigners were being protected and being prepared and armed to attack some of the South Africans in these mines. It has evolved over time. And South Africa is not only a secret military, but we have fought a brutal system of apartheid and defeated it, which is a system of hatred and all of that. And then we kept on cautioning, don't call our African brothers amakwirikwiri. Yumasikela speaks to us from the grave. Yekela ukubiza abanye abantu ngakuthi ngamakirimani nabo ngabantu. Nothing wrong raising your ire about the fact that illegal immigration have taken over Hillbrook. Majority of the people who are there and the buildings around us here and all of that in Johannesburg belong to some people we don't know. And majority of people who occupy those buildings are undocumented. The state must intervene and clean out. And that is what has been undertaken by an interministerial committee to deal with these particular issues. So, we have never been a nation that will embrace things like xenophobia, because we come from a history of racism. Xenophobia is a form of hatred, against another human being. Singabantu bobuntu, which is the truth. What a single provocateur does in the streets of Johannesburg does not represent millions of South Africans in our country. By beating up people, chasing people, becoming an agent provocateur, and doing all sorts of things. And these are the things that we have condemned. And we are very clear that there are other countries in the African continent who were quick to rush that this deserves attention and South Africa must be isolated. And all of that. Businesses of South Africa. And South Africans working in the African continent. There are people who are naive who think that South Africa does not do business with the rest of the continent, and there are no South Africans who are working in the African continent. That's not naivety. That's absolute, disaster for any individual, because you have closed yourself from the rest of the continent by thinking that this country of ours can exist outside Africa when we are in Africa ourselves. So the government of South Africa have undertaken a mission to brief different countries, and others we know have gone as far as targeting Al-Amin summit of the African Union to make a case against South Africa. And that is why, as the ANC, we have worked on this immigration compact that seeks to intervene in law, but at the same time to define this immigration matter which we place before you when we say it requires our discussion and enrichment as to what then makes this. It's not only a South African phenomenon, it's global, it's African. People come here to South Africa for a reason, in their numbers, because they run away from their countries. Others genuinely from political conflict, which they are covered by Geneva Convention in terms of how you deal with refugees and all of that. But others are coming here because they are looking for greener pastures. And unfortunately, they are doing that in an unlawful manner because of our porous borders. They come through and then they settle in our country. And whenever they do things, including criminality, we can't find them in the system. Now, you cannot go and settle in another country, create a drug den, and sell drugs and cocaine, and at the same time, the neighborhood just watches all. Some point, people are going to explode against that. Unfortunately, some of the illegal immigrants in South Africa, this is what they do. And we're not talking theory here because we have dealt with these cases. And that is why we say dismantle these drug cartels and drug dens in our communities and all of that. And those who are found to be not properly documented must then be properly, in a dignified manner, channeled to go back home. And that is what has happened. More than 70,000 of undocumented illegal immigrants have been taken to their different countries. So these issues need to be clarified, even with Nigeria, a biggest economy in the African continent. So special envoys have been doing that particular work, including Minister Lamula, which I saw in the media that earlier on it was reported that they were chased because we live in the era of disinformation. By that time, I knew there is no such a thing because Lamula had gone to Nigeria and probably came back last night on the same day, in the morning, early hours of the morning, and came back late. But it was reported to social media that they've been chased away, which was not correct. And our Minister of Delco. On the network, just wait for us to announce our mayors. And then once we have announced, you can then question. And they will not be announced faceless. They will be present when we announce them. And it's going to happen before we launch our campaign on the 15th. We launch our campaign in Johannesburg and we roll it out throughout the country, in different cities and towns all over. What we have been doing was to create a base and prepare ourselves for an election campaign which has now been declared to be on the 4th of November and gazetted. So we know that we must register all our public representatives by the 1st of September. We have been seized with that matter. We are a massive political party. We don't just exist in a corner. This campaign to us is wall to wall. We are registering more than 10,000 candidates and we contest everyone in the country. So we're not registering 1,000, 2,000 people, candidates. And these candidates are undergoing a rigorous process, vetting. They must be checked. Criminal records, any other implication of anyone, it's a rigorous process on its own. And then that candidate must appear in the public meeting. And I will explain the public meeting and the BGM, which is what other people don't do. ANC have never done the issue of candidate selection on its own as a party. It has always interacted with the broader populace of South Africa. So allow us to finalize our candidates, and then we can talk about the candidate. If that candidate is Reverend Chikane, we can talk. If that candidate is Mbalula, we can talk. But they don't come to a conclusion that somebody is a candidate. I know you are very worried in those cycles as to who becomes the candidate. We're following our processes. People are aging, and they've been announcing. Our campaign is not the personality, it is the ANC. What the ANC then proposes in terms of this process is an organizational approach. And then on our perceived on the ground, you conduct a campaign based on research, what people say, what are their concerns, what therefore you need to do to attract the vote, but at the same time, to get people to vote for your party. It's not a given. ANC has never gone to the people that will get 40%. In fact, it's the first time we get 40%. Because we are the incumbent, everybody looks at us. What are we doing? You see, everybody have launched their campaign, but others are still going to come back and launch, because the ANC have not launched. And they are going to come back. Well, they have to come back because the leading party launches and then you come and launch. And so we're going to launch and then the real campaign is going to start. Because, and it's not a statement of arrogance, it's because the ANC is governing. And therefore everybody looks at the ANC. It's not a statement, it's like that. Now, you can say it's to our advantage, and how the ANC in the tactics of the campaign uses that into its favor. It's a question that the ANC must then answer. I've seen the political party in this country since I've been running ANC elections launching manifesto twice. Because they went to launch. After the party that is governing launches, they realized, no, man. Ours was a picnic. Let's do something. So, the war rooms in the elections houses of the different political parties are operating. So we declare now that we will launch our campaign on the 24th, on the 15th of August, which is a week from now. And we're not going to a stadium. We're going to River Park, and you can go and research River Park. We moved people from Alexander. We're going to answer that question of 1 million houses in River Park. You distorted some that the Ramaphosa, our president, said is going to build 1 million houses. The process of building houses and moving the people of Alexander long began. And it created a place called the River Park. And we moved people from Alex. And therefore, the question of millions and millions of houses that will be built by Mamuluko and then were cartooned to meaning that we said we'll build 1 million houses and all of that in the campaign in Alexander. That became the main talk. So you've got to align that, but not take people for granted in the campaign, because there's a lot of criticism coming our way. Even if your dog has disappeared, the ANC, that is the problem you deal with, because others will. I watched some program this morning. It was running on SABC. This person is talking about his personal problems. But for somehow we found the ANC. And then I realized, how are we going to resolve this problem? And equally, you must understand the expectation that people have on the ANC and all of that. So you've got to appreciate that. And then Sunday word. Private partnership, we don't privatize. There's a problem we're dealing with in South Africa, which is what we call aging infrastructure. Because our term of office moves from 5 years to 5 years, local government and national government, we have identified the problem of electricity in South Africa that we're going to have a problem in early 2000. And then we went to build Kusile. That's what we did. And then when we are done building Kusile and it's supposed to come into operation after 2007 to enable us and cushion us against load shedding, because we've increased the capacity. Kusile was completely non-functional from an engineering point of view. And we're in the middle of the crisis. But the problem was not identified yesterday. We knew that under Mbeki's administration, the projection was that this country will run into all sorts of crises with regard to electricity. What do we need to do? Kuber is aging, and worst of all now we've got to deal with the challenge of climate change, environmental degradation, and therefore the international laws that we're signatories to require us to subject ourselves to those, to address the question of the environment and the challenge of climate change. So you deal with that against the challenge of an infrastructure in terms of energy that had collapsed. And then we had load shedding over time. And we came back from load shedding. And people said they are dealing with load shedding only for elections. The lights are still on. Elections have long passed. We're dealing with new challenges. The biggest challenge we know this country must overcome is the challenge of water. One, in terms of infrastructure, and at the same time, how do you address the question of water in relation to the expansion of communities in terms of urbanization as a phenomenon? There is new settlement literally every day. I went somewhere there, now I have a settlement, Fikile, Mbalula. I don't know whether you arrived here. I didn't know how. So, there's literally new settlement. And we're 30 million in 94. We're 60 now. And our infrastructure. I went in these interviews of mayors. I heard here there that people are still piping our water systems with asbestos. And we've got to change that. It's not going to happen overnight. That's why you've got tankers. Of course, tankers in certain instances were tainted with what? Criminality. People making quick buck with tankers. As a ruling party, these are the things we have come across. And some of our deployees, when we interview them there, they say to us, we have now made the tanking thing to be insourced, to be something that belongs to the municipality. It's no longer a tendering process, where in which you've got tankers because you are creating space or a gap for tender to come in to supply water and people make a quick buck. The municipality, as a stopgap measure, owns these tanks and supply water where there are challenges. Now, that's why we've got an action plan on water articulation and all of that to be addressed. One of the things we need to address, and which we are addressing in this process, is that they are big cities and they need complicated and sophisticated minds. You can afford to have a councillor who's got no matric, but you can't afford a no matric to run Joburg. Very sophisticated in this city, and Pretoria, and everywhere else. Now here in Joburg, you blame ANC for no refusal, when how many mayors were changed? And others were seriously challenged with capacity. And yet, the power is not all in your hands. You've got to consult small political parties, work with them. But let's look where you govern and you govern alone. The DA is governing alone in Cape Town. They are able to hold their own line and convince the whole country that they are the best. Because they govern alone. They are not in a coalition. But the people of Khayelitsha and Langa, as the public protector says today, there is a report. They have not been servicing those people and the colored communities in Cape Town, which constitute the majority. But what is the line of Cape Town? Through the DA in charge, then we are okay. And there has been stability there in terms of governance in those parts. There was stability in Joburg, where the ANC governed alone. We created magnificent inroads in Soweto and built and fixed roads and streets in Soweto under our own mayors. I know many people don't like me to say this, but that is the truth. These municipalities started to collapse when they fall into the hands of coalitions. It's a democracy. At the end of the day, have we reached an era of coalitions in South Africa that are irreversible? In the ANC, we don't believe. We will still work for overwhelming majority as a party. And that is what, that majority, you define it as what? It will be quantified post-elections. But we are going to work for outright decisive victory in this local government election. So, the question of water tankers, the question of water, private partnership and all of that, we believe that the source of water and supply must primarily rest with the state. And that's what has happened. This democratic state that built, they say the ANC government has not built anything. You know Nandoni Dam. I'm sure you dance there every weekend. No. We sent a community there and built Nandoni Dam. That is the product of the democratic state, Nandoni Dam, in Vembe. And black people, they are living large in Nandoni Dam. That dam was built. If you are in Nandoni Dam, you will see, you know, some trees popping up in the middle of the dam. It's because there were houses there. And they were seen from an engineering perspective and created a dam called Nandoni. And then here in the Eastern Cape, we're doing the highway like you have seen it in China, Twin Towers, and many others. And the roads were built even around eThekwini and so on by the democratic state. So I'm saying the supply of water and all of that primarily falls into the hands of the state. And the democratic state have done well, and it is important that this question of water, in terms of its plan of action, it is properly addressed as we speak now. Complaints about communities. There will be complaints. We're running a very big campaign. My phone is being jammed with messages, complaints, that our candidate who's supported by the community is not being supported by the PGM. That's the ANC. And therefore, what have we done? The center must hold. All candidates must be respected and be supported who are nominated in the communities. And through the processes of the ANC, these candidates must be safeguarded and be supported on the ground. Of course, there are complaints, but the complaints are processed through the processes of the ANC. Media 24 donation, I don't think it's Media 24. I think we are talking about masters.
It's not apparent anyway.
No, it's not media. Don't do that. Next time they will also say bad things about you.
No, I'm just quoting AfriForum, by the way.
No, AfriForum, they don't want anything come our way. They want masters to donate to their own. So, we too, we've got Afrikaners in the ANC. So, there's nothing wrong if Afrikaners support the ANC for its non-racial policy and all of that. That's still fine. So it can be Media 24. It should be NASPERS and it is declared. So it's not something that is underground, Media 24 gate. No, it's declared, it's donation. And we appreciate, we would like another one. Yeah. No, the membership of a person is not called there because he did something in the name of the ANC. Suleiman is there for his own things. He's got nothing to do with the ANC. The fact that he's a treasurer, yes, he will be subjected to integrity commission. He must explain himself. You see, I was in the TRC for being a minister of police. I didn't track the ANC there. I was being asked one simple question. Mre, did you stop TRC cases? Say, help me God. I stood there, you were there. I said, help me God, I've never done such a thing. In front of an honorable judge, compared. So, that we have been in the state and enjoyed the privilege of serving our people, we will be judged one day. And that is why, if we are judged, we must then stand by and say we did everything according to the book. So he's called there at the Matanga Commission. If he doesn't go, they will get him. He must account there. It's got when he goes there, he goes on his own. It has got nothing to do with the ANC. There are people who commit the ANC when they sit with their friends. They commit the movement. And when they are in trouble, they think the ANC. Now, the ANC is here, I'm here. I'm waiting for anyone who talk about the ANC. I'm on top of them. Because I need to understand, where did the ANC feature in your shenanigans? If you have been called upon by the commission, the membership of the ANC or that you are a leader will not protect you. You must appear because the ANC, the party that you lead or you happen to be its member, have supported the establishment of this commission. And it's still saying, Mkwanas have done a great job, like we said from the beginning. And we have said, allow the commission to do its job. And we have emphasized that demilitarize the police, stop a phone call policing, and do all of those particular processes. The police deal with 204, 205. The minister deals with 206, supported by the secretariat of the police. It must come to life. And then IP must not become a covert operation and above intelligence structures, crime intelligence, and everybody else. It must be what it is supposed to be. Because it was changed and made to be something it is not supposed to be. Because in terms of our checks and balances, it is there to ensure that police do not abuse their power. That's what it is there for. It's not to gather information and do all of those things. Those are the things that come out of Matanga we are mentioning here, that we believe don't have to wait for November or every 3 months, because they must happen now. You see, you don't need to change policy by November. If you can demilitarize the police, Kachalia must do that. After all, Zuma did this thing alone. He did not even consult the ANC, just change ranks. And all of that. I was the deputy minister, by the way. When this thing happened, the Latin Church signed it and the president and the change ranks of the police. And then said, no, if a policeman is called a superintendent. You remember, my police are not superintendent. Are knowing that in Unes. So a police must be a general. Because the intentions might have been good, but policy-wise, you are undermining the standing of the police in terms of so. The ANC itself, at that time, had no such policy to review ranks of the police. That thing does not need Madanga to end before we, as the ANC leading in government, to change the ranks of the police. And I'm certain that is happening now. It's been processed. You will see. We're going back to National Commission, NASCOM, Commissioners of Police. This rank thing, general, it must come to an end. Let police be police, policing civilians. They're not military. They are policing us. Yeah, you can call him Soup, Phoebe Soup, and all of them. Yes, and our police have got a beautiful uniform and everything else. So that's what we are saying here. Suleiman must stand for himself. Chaos at PIC. The president is curing chaos. So we're dealing with human beings are like that. You give them a big responsibility, they misbehave. When they misbehave, you need to deal with them. The center must hold. So president is dealing with that, and I think you will see clarity in the next couple of months in terms of the people who will be appointed there, and so on in terms of that PIC. Because PIC is too big to fail. We can't go for another state capture again, another Nugent commission. No. Where the signs of anarchy are clearing themselves, you deal with it right there, which is what the president is doing. It is in his purview. And then, of course, we've got interest of workers there. COSATU and everybody, and our GNU partners also are concerned about PIC. So that matter, President is handling it and is in his purview and is giving a good direction with regard to PIC. And the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance is Inokotowa, mediating between what? There's no mediation. The other one is a deputy, the other one is a minister. The minister is Enoch. Enoch have misbehaved in relation to what? I was a deputy, I thought I'm a minister. Myself, I used to quarrel with the minister. The minister is the one who sits in cabinet and takes decisions. And if the minister is finding problems there, he reports to the president must act. If he doesn't believe his minister, he must fire him. It's allowed, this thing in government is allowed for somebody you wake up, is no longer minister. You can't be coming here and say, mediate what? You are deployed. If you are deployed, stay in your lane. I was a deputy minister, I was redeployed nicely. And I was given a nice position. This one, Keaton Mackenzie is running. But you don't know, I was being redeployed because me and the minister were not fine. Because the minister got very, very worried every time he sees me on TV about Museveni. You know, this deputy, yeah, he is a problem. And I addressed him, I said, look, I'm not your tennis boy. Chiga here for you. But under normal circumstances, chaos cannot be there. Minister can't be fighting with deputy. A deputy minister must respect the minister and say, Minister, these are issues. It cannot be an eye for an eye between the two. Government doesn't work like that. And if there is such a problem, somebody must go. And there you don't need a CV to come in. There you just go. So those people who are at PIC, which I thought are good professionals, we supported them. When they resigned like that and so on, I realized there is a problem. There is a big problem. And the CEO was just being appointed. All of a sudden, the CEO is in this cheap renting of Musa Kaula and all of that. And so I realized this is not news. There's problems there. Somebody is dealing with the CEO, messing him up, defocus, dealing with his personal life. Because Musa Kaula, is a dirty platform. There's no recourse there. You can put anything untested about you and plug you there. And then you'll explain yourself, including the fact that some people are divorcing and so on and so on. So that's what they do. So you just have got to go to court and clear your name. But you, credible media, you can't do that. You can't just write what you like about somebody. And that's why Nitasha Moguti know it's a source. Some friction between the minister and answer electoral laws of the country. What? Not provocation.
Provocation of ANC and EFF.
Oh, no, I opened that video there. It's hovering over Makwarela, not EFF. The one online.
He was there.
No. The stadiums are probably some meters to each other. The video is here. It's over Makwarela. Yeah, over what's next? You guys took a video over Malema's thing.
We were in Malema's one.
No, there were two rallies there. Now, if he wants to fly over our rally on the 15th, there is no fly zone. Bring it down. Remember, there in our rally, there is a head of state, number 1 and number 2. So, that is not the opposition party. Come and hover over. It's a no-fly zone because bombs can be thrown there. We don't know. And if SANDF and everybody that day, president is there, they decide it's a no-fly zone, it's a no-fly zone. You must fly far away there in the Mbalula and so on. So here there was no no-fly zone. Our people are right, they were hovering over our stadium. Yeah, I've seen it. Here is it. About that. The fact that the helicopter, you know, when you are in a helicopter, you can think you are flying over Soweto, you are still in Joburg. You see, the distance is something. If the rally is in FNB and you take off from here, people will be saying we are hovering over there. No, that's not provocation. That was a vibrant weekend. One, on the other hand, it was Nelson Mandela, very successful rally. And there was no question of numbers from both rallies as to which one was full, one was not full. They were all full packed, except that they said ours was AI. And when it was full, guys, that was not Northwest. It was packed to capacity. And then that was not provocation at all. And I think the EFF rally too was a great success in its own way. Kasi, how do we measure Madanga? We have said from the onset that the terms of reference must speak to the outcome. And that's what we're seeing here. And then for the fact that we don't get a pause is something else, but we can see, which is what, if you compare to Zondo Commission, and then when Zondo had completed that work, and the two cannot be compared, Judge Zondo, because you were dealing with matters that require in-depth, sophisticated investigations. And if you look at our capacity and the things that are reported at Madanga, you realize that we were challenged in terms of dealing with the Zondo Commission and the investigation you want. But nonetheless, the report will come. But what is encouraging is the fact that a commission that is established to do an important work, you can see the result. We can touch them. We can feel it. We see people going there and And the people who are going there, it's not like it's witch hunt. It is dealing with facts in the way they've been reported. These police officers who have come forward and reported this criminality we see, which some of them are doing it at the great risk of their lives. Some things we don't know. You just get shocked that hey, you sit on TV and this and that, bombs have been dropped all over the space. Now, Maganga is doing a great job, Kasi, in that context, and of course, the report should come. It will come in November. I don't know whether by November still this commission would have done justice, unless you rush over a very important process that when it concludes, it must have dealt with everything on its desk. Because if you leave it in the middle, it's like you deal with a saw and then you still leave it open and it will come back again. So this thing, the way I see it, let's deal with it and finalize it. But that is my personal opinion, which I don't have the right to express in this platform. The ANC will still make the evaluation and make suggestions about that. Well, this thing that the trains are not running on time and all of that, I don't know. I dealt with trains. And trains are being increased. We're producing trains from Tanota in a good way. And there were supply trains, and I saw comments of people who were using trains, and they're very happy. But I know that congestion in the morning, but it's not like before. You say trains are not running on time. Of course, there could be some trains not running on time, I don't know, but I think the board of PRASA and the minister have done a good job to sustain good work that we started to rebuild PRASA as the ANC. Remember, PRASA also fell into the hands of state capture. That mess. There was a very, 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 very good plan at PRASA, invested by government billions of rands to upgrade our trains. You still have got locomotives that are parked as far as East London. Others are in Spain. And I need to get a report from Barbara. How far are they to bring those locomotives back to South Africa? Because those locomotives are going to help us with the long distance travel of trains. That is Shosholoza Main, which is now stuck because we don't have locomotives. We share locomotives with Transnet. All the time we've got to go and ask from them and hire and all of that and so on. But if we get those locomotives, which some of them are in East London and all of that, finalize what needs to be finalized, we will be very far. Remember Shibambo, or is it Shibambo? The people who misused 4 billion. Shifambo, yes, Shifambo. 4 billion rand into the sea. And therefore it was said that the locomotives we've got are torn and all of that, which is not the case. The locomotives fit the bill. What you need to do is that you went and purchased locomotives, you did not come to the party, you owe people, you've got to settle with them to get your locomotives back to South Africa. That's the thing you need to settle now. And then, of course, there was a corrupt deal. And that is why Zondo must work for us, because those who were involved must be arrested. And that is why Zondo was there for us, because 4 billion disappeared. Locomotives are stuck. Where will we get another money to go and release those locomotives from Spain and bring them to South Africa? Which they have all been spec'd, done. They were just supposed to be here properly delivered and all of that. So we had a long program invested in the upgrading of train stations. And I know when people have run out of ideas, they say, no, I did not protect the trains during COVID-19. When I arrived at Prasa, there were no proper security measures to protect the trains. Trains were being vandalized, including the electrical lines were being cut off by gangs. And to a certain extent, syndicates embedded in the transport system to sabotage the mass transport and push the people towards that direction, and at the same time disempower them because they don't have a taxi fee every day. They can afford a train ticket for a month. But this train ticket has cost people jobs, because you buy a train ticket and then you are in the train, and once you are in the train does not reach your destination, and then it collapses. We have fixed all of that. And I'm not an inspector, but I thought the board and the minister are doing a great job. Let me tell you what won me to become Minister of Transport. I was heading elections of the ANC, and I went with the president to the trains to campaign in the morning. And the train had a breakdown somewhere between Mabupane and Pretoria Station. And then I was in that train with the president. The people there said, yes, Mr. Mbalula, we got you today. This is what we go through every day. You don't know. So I don't want to quarrel with you. You may be right with your question because you used the trains, but I thought we are making a great improvement with the trains. And we can check with Prasa at any given point in time, but the reports that I have and Lujulia House is that the minister has covered a lost ground there and built on the work of recovering the train stations and the routes that had collapsed as a result of state capture. State capture planning. We're having upgraded stations and all of that and so on. And then we went to employ Mtimkulu. You remember Mtimkulu is in jail. And then you think we don't work. This state is working. Mtimkulu was introduced in the press conference that is the best engineer. The man had nothing. And he was introduced there by the former CEO. He says that not the best engineer. And Mtimkulu was sitting like and you see that this is a dangerous engineer from press. But the press minds. Was it David Mtimkulu or who? And then he called him with his full name. Mtimkulu, look at him. But because he's black, you undermine him. Only to find that this thing is a fraud. So, you want to tell me what we have inherited? Yeah. When that thing was running proper, built nicely, Prasa going, then they went to find Mtimkulu and put him there for a strategic role at Prasa, big position. The man is seated. Remember, Mtimkulu is him who was inspecting those trains from Spain. And then, what do you expect? This thing was about to collapse. And then you want to say, there is nothing wrong. Government had vision to upgrade train stations. We went and found Mtimkulu and put him there. Not secret. In a press conference, that thing is still there. Every time like he speaks, he's a comrade I like very much. Every time he speaks, they throw him into Look at what you brought us. Not very far. Mtimkulu is in jail, chief. As we speak now, somewhere here, Sun City or anywhere, maximum prison, locked up for stealing money from government. undermining a major program of upgrading. Yes, good things. If you go to Ghana, we produce our own trains, supported by the French. But we produce our trains, the blue trains you see, are produced there. Wonderful factory. South African government is pumping billions into that. And then we are supposed to produce about 600 locomotives. Not locomotives, I think carriages and everything. Nice trains. But it's quiet. It moves nicely. You know, you can think you are in Gauteng when you are in that. But we're producing. And there's money being spent there in terms of upgrading public transport. And do away with this yellow trains fleet you see that is parked here outside. That yellow fleet is supposed to be destroyed outside there. And when you go across the Mandela Bridge, you see those trains there. They are supposed to be destroyed, and that space is supposed to be parked new trains. And some of them are parked there in Pretoria, and so on. So there's been a good work that has been done. The security arrangement has been an Achilles heel at Prasa. Train lines being destroyed, and stability was brought. A lot of work has gone into that work of stabilizing that setup there. So if you say to me the situation is worse, I've seen worse, where people will be jumping on top of the train from Soweto in the morning, coming to town, even in Pretoria and everywhere else. That situation does not obtain. There could be challenges, I'm not disputing that, but we're looking for it. So the helicopter is the helicopter. Chop. Not mine, it's Limpopo.
There was just one question coming in about the 69 municipalities, and then we also have another question from ENCA that's watching online. On the equitable grant withheld, if you look at the local government manifesto of the ANC of 2021, as well as the action plan that we adopted at the roll call last year, we said that there are 3 non-negotiables. The one is municipalities should not pass unfunded budgets. Secondly, they have to properly deal with unauthorized, irregular, wasteful expenditure. And 3, they have to ensure that they treat their creditors properly. So the water boards, ESCO, but also small SMMEs. So the withholding of the equitable grant was because municipalities didn't do that. They didn't, and it wasn't that they were told that you must tomorrow have a funded budget. They were told, give us a plan, and they didn't do that. And this is why Treasury took that decision, supported by the local government intervention team of and the AGSA has been raising it. And this is what we mean by decisive action. Treasury this morning announced that at the end of July they will pay out the equitable share. And by the way, the picking up problem has got nothing that has caused the challenges that they face. But at the end of the day, municipalities must comply. We can't have year after year the Auditor General raising these issues and our municipalities don't comply. Okay, are there any further questions? Because we have to round off. Okay, I'm going to ask people that haven't asked the question. Oh, sorry, this gentleman also asked the question about Pan-Africanism. The ANC has been a Pan-Africanist movement since 1912. If you look at the participants in our 1912 conference, it didn't just come from South Africa. We had delegates from all over the continent. In a number of Southern African countries, they have an African National Congress because of that very same reason. So that is very deep. It's a part of the DNA of the ANC. At the same time, and this is what the compact is about immigration compact, which we are putting forward, not just for South Africa, but for the continent, is to say that if you have a situation where there is uncontrolled migration, there is large numbers of economic migrants, how do we deal with this as a continent? And this is what it is about. So we believe in African solutions to African problems, and this is why it's something that we're suggesting in our engagements with other fellow African countries, and also to SADC as well as to the African Union. Yes, sir.
I'm just on a
Okay, just raise your voice. People on social media can't hear.
I'm just Shala Gavada from Explain News. Just one from me.
Explain News.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There's been a lot of talk about Gauteng specifically, but I wanted to know what the ANC's plans are in KZN to regain the support it lost in 2024. That's all.
Explain News.
Yes.
Explain News. Okay. Okay, you've already asked the question. Let's give other people an opportunity.
My name is Ntebo. I'm with the SABC.
Our public broadcast.
Yes, Secretary General. The sense I'm getting is that you seem to be celebrating the fact that the march, and I think some people that used to support them, they are no longer in good terms. And you say the people shouldn't be celebrating. People shouldn't be celebrating what they've done. But don't you think that there are those who are bearing the brunt of the presence of undocumented foreign nationals in this country, who are saying, I mean, since flowing from the call that those who are undocumented should leave, 72,000 of them have left from the 5th to the 7th of August, from the 5th of June to the 7th of August. 72,000 of them, of which government couldn't do that in that short space of time. Even if you can look at the records, government has never, deported almost 72,000 people, over 72,000 people in less than 35 days. And that has happened. Don't you think the people who are bearing the brunt of some of the criminalities that is done by these people who are undocumented in the country should be celebrating that? And don't you think that maybe rubbishing them will sort of again had an attitude towards the ANC? Because some people are saying those officials that are seemingly rubbishing the people who are undocumented foreign nationals must leave the country are not in fact affected by anything by these people.
Okay, you're coming back. Okay, the two. We also have an online question. SG will respond to it from ENCA.
SG Brighton here from Netwerk 24 again. Just a quick one. There's been some controversy around this dinner or fundraising dinner that's being planned by the ANC in Johannesburg. It's about 500,000 rand per table to sit with various ministers and the mayor, and 200,000 rand to sit with MMCs or what. Is that sanctioned by the Tuli House? Are you aware of such dinner, and do you welcome such fundraising dinners? Thank you so much.
Thanks, SG. Just a quick one from my side as well. SG, as the ANC administration chief, are you aware of chaos that is happening at the King Sabato Daringi municipality in the Eastern Cape, where we understand that the councillors there have defied the regional leadership of the ANC and voted according to their own wishes? Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, Carsten.
Yeah. Mr. Fixit, you say you went to the TRC, you put up your hand, you say, so help me God and all that. But my assessment of your statement at TRC, you said, I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, I don't know anything. But Frank Chikane made a statement at the TRC that's very important. And I think the TRC should call you back as the ANC SG. Because Frank Chikane said, when the ANC wanted to send this apartheid generals and all this to jail for what they did during apartheid, these generals then presented the ANC 37 list of people, ANC members, that did crime or murdered people or did bad things. And based on that, it looks like that's why the TRC process collapsed. How do you respond to that? And also Thabo Mbeki, a former ANC president, Jacob Zuma, former ANC president, don't want to go to the TRC. So will you make the ANC 37 list available that the apartheid generals gave to the ANC? Thank you.
Okay, that's the last round. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll be very quick. Support in KZN. We work on support all the time in the campaign. It's not a given that the ANC will emerge victorious, but the work that we've started doing in KZN is the work that is directing towards regaining massive support the ANC enjoyed in KwaZulu-Natal. So that is the work we're doing. On the SABC March and March, we're not celebrating the March and March march. We have been very consistent to condemn illegal activities that include vigilantism and anarchy. And we still insist on that. When on Twitter, the leader of March and March said that they are going to march every week and that I attacked them. I said to her, don't distort me. Because I said that march, even the issues that you are raising, you will be shocked that in our constituencies, people agree with the fact that some of these people in the areas where our people live, in the townships, have promoted drug dens and cartels and illegal prostitution and even by minors. When you check on those things, you realize that these are done in our areas, and what do we do? And I even made different examples about Kagiso. When people of Kagiso went to the streets, I went there as a minister of police, and I destroyed those houses. When people burnt down the police station in Kagiso, I went there with the police. I was a minister, I went there. And then we agreed on terms, and the policemen and women there were facing challenges and so on. We had to redirect them and said to the commissioner of police, do something. Change the police here and all of that. This is what the community is demanding. And the police acted on that. And then I went back to the community, gave a report back, and then I said, among others, we are going to destroy these places around here, which we did. In some of those places today, there is McDonald's, Kentucky, and all of that built, creating jobs and so on. So we are not celebrating the fact that there is difference. It's a point of emphasis that because they were accused, among others, that they are fermenting this thing because of political interest to undermine the democratic state by vested interest. both domestic and international, and they have been given money, something that we cannot prove. But over and above that, they began to espouse politics. It is a well-documented fact that we were called by name as the ANC repeatedly by some leaders of this march and march, that the ANC must be isolated. Certain political parties must be recognized. And these political parties that invited the leaders of this march and march, embraced them. Whereas on the other hand, when ANC public representatives acting in the positions of authority, they were booed down. Now you want to tell me that there is no political element there? And then I said, you will see, because this is not a pure issue of immigration and undocumented people and all of that. It has got a hand behind it that is political, and at this thing they are going to end up fighting among themselves. And one leader, during that period of the 30th, called on people who were there that they must vote for the IFP. They must give IFP a chance here in Johannesburg. Ntebu, where were your cameras? They were there. And I was reacting exactly to that, to say that this is not just an innocent, pure grouping of people concerned about an issue-based issue, but it has now been extended to a political head. And then meeting the president by some of the leaders of the group was defined as inimical. Why shouldn't the president of the republic, who represents all of us, irrespective of where we come from, meeting the people and citizens of this country, become inimical? And basically be defined that those who did that act are sellouts. What is the agenda here that is being pursued? That's how you define an agenda. It's not me. It's the chronology of events that have unfolded around March and March that have then said, here we are dealing with a sheep, with a wolf in a sheepskin. The wolf is still coming. It's covered with a sheep. And the wolf has not come out agitating for political support or any other one. But it has been it started subtle, but it becomes aggressive in attacking the African National Congress. We will never support anarchy in our country. We will never support that Africans in our country must be beaten up and be chased like dogs. We are a lawful country. We are people of Ubuntu, people who are undocumented, as we have shown under the IMC of Dubai and the state. These things can be done and be done lawfully. And that's what has actually happened. And that's what the ANC espouses. The ANC has never said that illegal immigration is not a challenge. We said it's not unique to South Africa, it's global in its nature. And therefore, that is why we are giving you the immigration compact as our submission to this particular situation we are faced with in our country. But for the fact that others want to ferment anger and project the country at an international stage as a country that is xenophobic, that's what we are called out there. Those who are not going to bear the consequences will loomer in the street and become peacetime heroes, but this country will suffer long after they've gone with their anarchy. For what? For what? Peacetime hero and all of that? For South Africa that we fought for and our forebears to be liberated, to be isolated for something that we don't believe in. That will not happen. And that cannot be promoted by law-abiding South African citizens. But equally, somebody said, I'm not reading the room. People are angry about immigration. I said, I'm reading the room correctly. I was at a Women's League rally when I spoke about immigration at the Women's League rally, and people said, in the ANC event. I was addressing. I read the room correctly. It does not mean even when members of the ANC say Abba, it's because they feel the brunt and the pain of somebody who's tormenting them down in East London, locking their kids for prostitution, for drugs in the streets. And I don't want to mention nationalities of where these people come from. We all know of these things. And therefore, it's a real matter that needs to be addressed, and we are addressing it. But it cannot be addressed in the way others seek to do. Project this country as a violent nation that hates other Africans, and therefore we can do as others wish, and that's how we will become quickly popular and maybe win votes. Some of these people are going to become leaders very soon. Again, I'm predicting like as if I'm a Sango, but you can see them. They are going to become leaders, they are going to stand and all of that. These are politicians that we are dealing with, and clothed in a sheepskin, but then coming in this particular direction. So the fundamental question is, make immigration a complicated issue for the ANC government. And in that way, you will be in a position to bring them down quick and fast. And that is why others have lost principles. Others have not even uttered a word about this particular issue. I'm talking about opposition benches, except for the fact that another political party is accused of something else on this particular matter. But we need to unite on something that has got a danger to undermine and corrode the standing of South Africa among nations of the world. And that will also have a backlash and backfire. There are people who are quick out there who want slightest provocation for our country to be isolated. When this matter started being debated at the United Nations, we realized that there are challenges here, because we took people to ICJ, and therefore this is the pain we've got to suffer for the stance we've actually taken. South Africa must be isolated, but use immigration to deal with what? With this particular question. And basically charge this country. And when this country is charged and isolated and is on the brink of collapse, who will be blamed for that? It will not be immigration. It will be the African National Congress, the leading party. Many will not understand me today about the statement I'm making, but at the end of the day, be careful about wedge drivers who move from ear to ear and plunging the country into a state of no return. And as law-abiding citizens and patriots, we stand up against that. We stand up against that. And at the same time, we urge the state to intervene, which is what is being done lawfully. Correctly so. What we have called upon should actually happen, it has happened. 70,000 and even more. Other people have left voluntarily back to their countries. And because they deem it that it is no longer safe to be in South Africa. Now, even people who are adding value in our institutions of higher learning who came here legally were now being targeted. There's no way we can agree that people must be isolated, targeted for vigilantism and attacked openly. In certain instances, people were being isolated and it was said, we don't care whether you've got documents or no documents, go away. Leave us alone in our country. We must promote that. Where are the churches? When their congregants are being misled in that way, where hatred is being spread all around us in the name of xenophobia for South Africa. That we should not agree to. And that is what we have clarified, that we don't agree that South Africa is xenophobic and that we are celebrating one moment of failure. No. If March and March had their own way, they had 120 marches across the country, and well and good. Even in those marches in Cape Town, you had ANC members, some of them marching peacefully together with them and all of that. That's not an issue. If this country on the 30th of June became what South Africa was in July 21, when people were looting here, and more than 400 people died in this country, who would have been at loss? And the economy was injured in the process. The very same people who are fighting for wages, who are supposed to wake up and go to work and get to work and all of that, would have been affected. Our people at most chose not to go to work on that day. It was quiet like it was a Sunday. But there was no violence. Where there was violence in Yeovil and Germiston, it was nipped in the bud. Where vigilantism was rearing its ugly head, police were there to deal with it and arrest people. We're told that one person died in Hillbrow through a stray bullet on that day. I mean, soldiers had to be deployed in Jeppetal at night when there was an exchange of gunfire right behind us here. Soldiers had to quell that particular anarchy and attacks that were happening. Where were the leaders? I've never heard them condemning violence. Only now that I've heard them, and then I want to clap hands for them, at least for that. That no, not in our name, vigilantism and violence must be promoted, and all of that. So, but all along, when it started, it was violent. People were being clapped in the street, beaten up, pangas up in the air, and everywhere else, gun-toting. And then we must keep quiet about that. In no time, we will not have a country. There will be no law in this country. There will be no state. This thing will become a banana republic, which is something that we cannot condone. On the fundraising, we fundraise. We support the fundraising. It would be good to get somebody to buy a table for 5 million or 3 million. And that is it. I know when you talk about ministers, you think they are linked to their departments, tenders, and all of that. No, we are not there. The question is that every region has got the right to fundraise. We are in an election campaign now. All methods must be employed to raise money for the ANC. And if people want to buy, I'm not a minister. I'm going to that dinner. I just deployed the deputy president. He's a speaker in that dinner. My table will be bought for 2 million. I'm not a minister, I'm the SG. I'm giving you an example. Phoebe, how much is your table? Maybe 500,000. The person who takes out the money, he's taking it out because he has made a conscious decision to support the political party, either through buying a table. But if that person is corrupt, is doing illegal things and illegal tenders, we'll throw that money back to them, as it has happened in the past. People come there and PBF, only to find that they are corrupt or they are implicated in corrupt tendencies. Should we find that in our processes of fundraising, we will gladly take the money back and chuck the fellows out. But we don't judge the person. We look at the money. And then if we discover that there is a problem with the money, we take it back together with the person. And that is what we do. So it's a fundraising dinner of the region. We know about it. And therefore, comrades must do things in the prescripts of renewal. People must never use the name of the ANC in vain and do corrupt activities and think that the ANC is still the same. It is not. You bring your dirty money to us, we'll sell it there. But if you contribute genuinely because you believe in the ideals of the African National Congress, whether you got a tender elsewhere and you are moneyed and you want to, or you've got your own business, you are in mining like Motsepe, you fundraise, you donate, we're very happy with that. We don't want questionable monies coming our way. Sunday, well done here, I don't know about that. We'll make follow up. There's chaos everywhere sometimes. We'll attend to it. If people have acted in that way, clearly they've transgressed against the ANC. TRC, we will go to the TRC. We have a mandate from the NWC, among others, that we need to respond to some of the things that have been raised about the ANC. That's why when I went there, I did not speak for the ANC. I was speaking for the department and the ministry I was heading. And I gave an honest account to the best of my ability. So I was there. Now, the ANC as an organization is looking at that TRC matter. And at some point, the ANC will also would like to, if necessary, to address some of the issues that needs to be addressed. But we've got a mandate to look at that particular situation and to also prepare an ANC response to the matter. I think Mbeki and Zuma can speak for themselves. They are still alive on the matter of the TRC. But as leaders of the ANC who were there during that time, as a party, we've got the responsibility in terms of that memory to tap on. So when the ANC responds to what it needs to respond to, we will go to President Mbeki, which President Mbeki raises fundamental political issues in relation to the TRC and what is actually challenging in terms of the standing of the ANC. And we will tap into that. I don't know what Zuma is fighting about in relation to the TRC, but should he actually also be sharing the same perspective with us? For once, we will be together in terms of addressing the matter. So we'll talk to everybody about that, because that memory is still there. Matthew Posa, Thabo Mbeki, Jacob Zuma, and many of our leaders who handled matters of the TRC in the leadership of the ANC hierarchy are still there. Khalima Mklante and all of them. So the ANC will speak for itself in terms of that process, and we have agreed we will do so, should we be required to do so as a movement. But we believe that it is necessary to do that. Thank you.
Okay, we've come to the end of it, but just the SABC colleague, you talked about the 70,000 deportations, but the biggest number of deportations happened in 2007 on an annual basis, and there was 312,284 people undocumented deported.
In 1 month.
In 1 year, over a year.
I'm talking about 1 month, 72,000.
But it's about 885 per day, if you compare it. So we need to look at the 70,000 divided by the month. Yeah. Okay. So, and this was under the Mbeki presidency, and I don't think anybody can call him not being Pan-African, because every country has to protect its sovereignty, and undocumented people in your country is a problem from all different perspectives. Okay, thank you very much for all of you that attended this media briefing, and thank you very much for the questions, and thank you very much to the Secretary General for his patience in responding to the questions. Till we meet again. Thank you.